Okay, so I'm going to share again. So, okay, so hi, we're talking about Quest, the Quest modules that CVC-OEI has developed to help prepare students in the online environment. And again, my name is Bonnie Peters. I'm the CVC-OEI Director of Student Experience. My colleague Jessica Utado, who's helped put this together, is on the call, but I will be doing the presentation this morning. She and I are both two people you can contact if you have any questions, and I'll provide our contact information later on for any of the student services related topics or tools that you might have an interest in. So, really what our goal is today, if you've been in some of the earlier sessions that we were having, we're really here to just provide support to all of you, all of your colleges, all of your student services departments with regards to moving your services online. And one of the areas that we do know is going to come up is that if you're moving your classes online in a very quick way, in a quick manner, some of these students may never have taken an online class. And having these students be prepared to take online classes can be is necessary so that they can be successful in the online environment. So that's what we're trying to do with Quest. So when we first started with CVC-OEI, one of the very first things we did as an online education initiative was to look at how prepared students would be to learn in the online environment. The fact that online classes were being offered, and many of you have some self-assessments that you've had students to sort of self-assess whether or not they're ready. There weren't many tools that helps students as a resource to kind of really think about what it meant to learn in the online environment. So we decided that we would take on that task of providing tools to the system. And what we did was create a series of modules and placed it within a Canvas course call that program, workshop rather, Quest for Success. And the goal really is about looking at preparing students for online learning, right? Trying to understand the demands, having students try to understand the demands of online learning and recognizing that online learning is just as, and in some instances more challenging than when they're in a face-to-face class. So they need to recognize what that looks like. Having students figure out what are their weaknesses in their online environment and finding ways to correct that, developing those skills. And the goal here was to provide on-demand resources throughout the term. So it's not like the student just figured out, oh yeah, I may struggle in the online environment. We wanted to have resources that they can keep referring to so that they would be able to then use those tools to help them be successful throughout the entire term. What we did was we broke those modules into two components. We recognize that there are new online learners, which I think is in light of what is happening now with many colleges moving a lot of their services and classes online in a short time frame, you're going to see a lot of new online learners in terms of students. But we recognize there also were experienced online learners as well. And so when we were developing the tutorials, the multimedia tutorials, we looked at topics that affected and impacted both new online learners and what would matter to them and what the experienced learner would need to know and how that they could be supported while taking their online courses. And if you notice on this slide, you're seeing that the top half, both learners can benefit from the modules or the topics here, right? Getting tech ready, organizational and study skills, time management, and those things. So those topics that we tackled there with the tutorials apply to both. But with the experienced online learner, we decided to also look at things that came along with that student who might have had 2 years in, ready, is trying to put together their degree plan and struggling a bit. So we had topics on educational planning, career planning, instructional support, personal support, financial support. Now, it does not mean that a new learner doesn't benefit from that, but these were really targeted so that the experienced learner did not feel like, well, wait a minute, I know all this other stuff before, I've been doing this for a while. We wanted to make sure that they had topics that were interest to them as well and was supportive to their needs. Okay, so really Quest. So some of you, many of you, if you've been with us for a while, would recognize Quest as the Quest for Success program built in Canvas as a Canvas tool. And at that time, it had integrated the Smart to Measure diagnostic tool. Going forward from June 30th, we won't be providing the Smart to Measure diagnostic tool as part of the Quest program. We will just simply be providing the Quest multimedia tutorials, which is what we're going to focus on today. That does not mean if you decided to continue with the Smart to Measure subscription at your campus, and your campus is running its own subscription, you can keep that integrated, and we advise you to keep it integrated, because our reasoning for not having Smart to Measure has nothing to do with the quality of that diagnostic. As a matter of fact, it's very comprehensive, and it really, the students found it very, very useful. So if your college is keeping Smart to Measure, then I would say you keep it integrated in your Quest program. But with us, we are separating the two, and so we're focusing on the multimedia tutorials. And I'll take a look at the tutorials themselves in a minute so that you can kind of see, if you're new to all of this, what they look like and some of the topics that they cover. There are 11 multimedia tutorials. And we also have 4 interactive tools for skill development. And we've made it part of Creative Commons, and that license can be used by anyone. So we've had colleges throughout the United States using our multimedia tutorials, as well as you guys, your colleges. Many of you, because we've been doing this for a while, since 2015, many of you have taken the tools and taken the course and customized it to fit your college and your needs. And that's fantastic. We see examples of that, and that works, and that's kind of what we want to do. In a minute, I'm going to show you an example of MPC, who is has just sort of created their version of Quest minus the Smart to Measure component, and that is available through Canvas Commons, and I'll show you where that is, and you can download it from there. But for now, I want to focus on the tutorials. They can be easily embedded within a course or linked from anywhere, so I'll show you that in a minute. And all CCCs have access to this program, and again, we have it as a shell built within Canvas, so you can have that, or you can just link directly to the multimedia tutorials, which we'll do in a second. So let me do that. Let me minimize so I can actually, let's see if my screen will change. There we go. Okay, so when you click on the link to find the tutorials, there's a lot of information on the page, but we'll go straight to the tutorials. A couple of things. We have all the resources about them here, and you can download them from here, and you can click on download, or you can go directly to the each one of the tutorials themselves. So you can simply have a link, if that's what you rather do at your college, so that students have access to them, or as we've encouraged, especially since everyone would be, this is about online students, having it set up as a course within Canvas so that the students get access to that as part of their dashboard, right? When they go into Canvas, they get the online learning tutorials. I'll speak to you in a minute about the uses of it and and how you can use it, and how you get strategies for effective use when it's set up as a Canvas course. So I just want to give a little quick demonstration of one of them. We won't run through necessarily all of it. I'll give it, each one of them is around, none of them is longer. I don't think there's any longer than 5 minutes, but we won't necessarily go through the entire 5 minutes. So let's just click on getting introduction. The introduction is 12. So one of the things we did, this has to do with accessibility. You'll notice we have the actual launch of the multimedia presentation. We have the text script only, and then we have the audio component. So you can have your student choose any one of them in terms of whatever is to their preference. And if you prefer the portability of an MP3 file, then that is an option as well. So let's click, and I'll just give you, hopefully everyone can hear the video.
If you're watching this module, you've decided to investigate online learning as an alternative to a traditional classroom. But what will this really mean for you as a student? Here we're going to introduce you to the world of online learning. We're going to show you how it works, debunk a few common misconceptions about online learning environments, and explore some of the differences you will encounter when taking online courses rather than in a traditional classroom. Let's start at the beginning. In an online course, your instruction is delivered over the internet rather than in person in a traditional classroom. Seems obvious enough, right? In fact, think of the course management system, or CMS, as a virtual classroom. The CMS is where your instructor will post all of the course materials, conduct online discussions and perhaps other activities, and receive your assignments. Additionally, it's where your instructor will expect you to read all the course materials posted there, participate in the activities created, and use the CMS to submit your assignments. Accessing the CMS is easy. You can log in using any internet-capable device, a computer, a tablet, or even your smartphone. This means that you will be able to go to class whenever and wherever you'd like, as long as you have an internet connection.
Okay, so I'll stop that one there for a minute. Like I said, I wasn't going to let it run for the full 12 minutes, but I wanted to kind of just talk about it a bit. As you can see, it really just the introduction one really kind of gets into the idea of what the CMS is, right? We didn't give it a name because we needed this to be timeless, right? So think about the new students as you all are moving your classes to the online environment right now. Think about the new student who, yes, Canvas is, you know, for us and you all who are familiar with online Canvas, we know Canvas in terms of the word Canvas, the term Canvas, we know it inside out. But there's several students on your campus who have not done online, have not even considered online, and none of this means anything to them. So things like a tool like this, a tutorial like this can be really useful and can really help you manage time in a classroom when the student is trying to understand how to use the online environment and how effective it can be for them if they're new to all of this. You have things like debunking the myths regarding online classes and taking online. I'll just click through a couple of them. And by the way, the students who are part of this are students from real campuses within the system. So we've tried to make it interactive.
The online class is way easier than taking a class on campus. You don't even have to go to class. You just hand in the assignments and you're done.
Okay, so you see, we try to kind of get at some of the questions that we think online students who are new to online, how they think about online, and try to put those into the introductory online learning. So this is just one out of several, and let's see, let me go back to this is just one out of several, and as you can see, we have, sorry, let me get back to I have too many things opened up here. Here we go. This kind of starts really from the beginning and then really gets into a lot of stuff. You know, you have online reading strategies. That was a really interesting one when that one was being developed, because when you think about it, and I think it's not just new to online learning, reading online is a bit different than it is when you're reading in a book. What I wanted to point out to you all when we were developing this, which is why it worked well with Smart to Measure, we took a lot of the topics that were part of that diagnostic, and knowing that the students' results would be speaking to their reading skills, their communication skills, and those study and management time skills, these resources were built to address that. So when that student got back their report saying they were weak in these areas, we actually had tutorials that had resources that addressed whether or not that student, how to help that student improve in that particular area. So again, if you wanted to keep, if you are going to keep your Smart Measure subscription, this works well with that. If it's not, it still works really well, because these are the identified areas that students struggle with when it comes to online learning. We also included a couple of interactive tools after we got feedback from students about some of the things they needed for the online environment. The cost calculator has to do with the financial planning piece of it. Computer readiness test, the daily schedule calendar, which was really, it's an interactive one where it can help students identify what they're doing with their time. As you can see, I'm putting in time, hours, and it's showing you how the hours are going down. So when a student thinks that they have a lot of time to study and a lot of time to take care of business and whatever else they have to do, right now I'm at minus hours, right? 24 hours is not enough for what I want to do, and that's with me sleeping only 3 hours, right? It's really, we try to make it as interactive, as fun as possible, but it allows the students to really use these tools to help them figure out how to maneuver the online environment. And again, I'm focusing a lot on whether or not they're new to the whole online environment. Okay, so I will let you kind of look at the rest of them by looking at the link. I noticed, I saw, thank you, Andrea, for posting the link there. You can take a look at all of them. We're not going to go through all of them because we don't have the time for that. But I wanted to continue in terms of Quest as a Canvas course, and I wanted to use the Monterey Peninsula example based on a course that is set up with the Smarter Measure piece taken out of it. Our friend and former colleague, Anita Crowley, is currently working with Monterey Peninsula, and Anita was one of the people, the person who started, who worked on building the Quest for Success program. She and I worked on it together, and a lot of this is her work. And now that she's been doing some work with Monterey Peninsula College, she modified for them their Quest course minus the Smarter Measure component. And I wanted to share that with you all because it is available in Canvas Commons. And you guys can take a look at it. I know there are some others. I've seen some other schools have their information there as well and have their courses there as well. You can take a look at it. But if you look at Monterey Peninsula, you can see where this is a course that was designed where it has some quizzes and files, and the multimedia tutorials are incorporated into there, right? So the first module has the online learning right for me. Here's the introduction to online learning mod tutorial that we took a look at, and there's some quizzes incorporated in there. And the reason why it's set up as a Canvas course makes sense is because it can be a companion course for students, right? They can go into this and they can use this and keep it with them as part of their success strategies throughout the semester or throughout the term. So having it in the dashboard keeps it right there on this, very visible and very front and center for the students. So you guys may want to take a look. There are other schools, like I said, who have customized. If you've already done it and you're happy with what you have, that's fantastic. But I know Anita just put this together, and I thought it was a great opportunity and good timing to display what the intent was with Quest. And again, it's in Canvas Commons and it's available for download from by any of the colleges. So I just wanted to share that with you guys. Okay, so let's talk about students accessing Quest, and I kind of hinted at it a bit in a while ago. part of one of the unique things about Quest and these multimedia tutorials is that we wanted to ensure that students had resources to keep them moving and keep them going. So even though you may have taken 1 or 2 classes in the online environment, and even if that student is successful in those classes, because online has to do a bit with trying to make sure your life fits in, right? It's very easy for a student to sort of lose track of like, oh, I need to go and take care of my classes now, or set aside time for taking care of classes and going to school because their class is online. That same experienced student can easily still have a need to have these resources with them throughout the semester or the term. So we wanted to create stuff that would go with the students throughout the term, but we also wanted to ensure that those students who were considering online had access to tools that can kind of give them a heads up whether or not where they are, their level of preparation. And I would say, based on what we're facing right now, where you guys may have a lot more new to online students that you would typically have had you not moved, if you're not moving all your classes to the online environment. I think one of the great places that, and we were talking about this even before this situation has happened, was that these modules should be incorporated somehow in your new student online orientation. And it doesn't mean you have to put all of them. It doesn't mean you have to put half of them. You can take a look at which ones you think has the most value to a new student and incorporate that as part of your new student orientation. Because what it does, it gives that student that heads up. Oh, this is what online is about. Okay, I need to know, be prepared. I need to think about these things. I need to plan this kind of way. So a great starting point for accessing Quest, if you can, is to incorporate that as part of your new student orientation. A second place is prior to the start of classes. Let's say that you're not dealing with new students and you're dealing with students who have not taken online before, but they're not going through new student orientation. Prior to the start of classes, a lot of schools have been able to disseminate like the links to the students in part of your messaging, encouraging students to go through these modules at their leisure so that they can have some preparation before they actually start an online class. So these are some of the strategies that we think are useful. Let's say they get to the first week of class. It can be used as which kind of in keeping with the last bullet, a resource inside an online course. Within the first week, some classes tend to do a sort of mini orientation to the class. You can have a couple again. You can have that course in there, but it doesn't have to be that you have the students go through every single module. You can pick and choose, and you can do, do a discussion around one of these. What did you learn from it? You know, these type of things that really gets the students thinking about what it means to be in an online environment, and they're learning at the same time. And then, as I mentioned, throughout the term as a companion. So they have resources to go along with what they're trying to do. So, you know, this is a time for when student preparation and readiness is key with what's going on here in terms of moving classes online. And I can't emphasize, you know, I can't stress enough that prior to the start of classes and that new student orientation somehow, and I know, and what I'm saying to you is I know it's easier said than done because I'm not talking about, we all have new student orientation and you have it set up a certain way, but I'm thinking about you thinking about reconstructing, thinking about how you can make it work so that the students can get access to this information, and it's not just another thing to do, but rather it's useful. I know a lot of times new student orientation is about orientation students to the college and the services that's available and, you know, what comes next and that type of thing. But with online, I think it's really important to have an orientation about what it means to be in an online environment when you're taking classes. And these tools can be very helpful and useful for doing that. So just wanted to make that clear. I just wanted to share this with you. When we first started, and actually for a few years, we gathered a lot of data from student feedback about what was useful and what wasn't, so that we could make modifications. And, you know, as I was preparing for this and looking back on that data, we consistently found and got back from students that these particular modules, or we said modules because we're looking at it from the Canvas course, but it's the list of tutorials, what were most useful. And we found overall 1 to 3 students said that 96% of the students found that those were very helpful. And that's the starting introduction module to getting tech ready. And I forgot what the third one is, it's on the list. The number 4 for the new students, found that one very helpful. Number 4, again, experienced students found that very helpful. And 5 through 9, the experienced students found that very helpful. So I share that with you because the students are finding it useful. So what we're trying not to do is just have another thing for students to do, right? That's not what we're trying to do. We're really trying to find a tool that is useful and the students are getting use out of it. And so that's the goal. So when we gathered student feedback, we really wanted to see, well, is this working? Did this make sense? What do you want to see from this? Is it helping you? And this was some of the results. And this was done through when we through the RP group, so they gathered that information for us. So I just wanted to share that. So if you're wondering whether or not it's of value to students, this has been the data, and this was about 3 to 4 years of information, and it's been consistently so. Okay, so I'm going to stop there, and I couldn't see the questions really well if there were any questions. So I will open it up for questions if you guys have any questions, and yeah, we'll go from there. Okay, I'm seeing. Okay, so hi everyone. There's an instructional designer and have created an adaptable, accessible. Okay, so Liesel Madrona, who used to work with us, she's on the call and she's noted. Thank you, Liesel, for doing that. It is great, and that's exactly what we want. We want to have colleges who are setting up different versions of it using the multimedia tutorial. So I appreciate that a whole lot, Liesel, and thank you for making that available to the system. Okay, so how to access Quest, someone had asked about it. Really, right now, you can either go and use one, we have a template, and then you can see what Liesel said. You can use one of the other colleges' template if it's available through Canvas Commons, but you can get access to all of the tutorials on that link that Andrea placed a link in the chat, and you can incorporate them into your course. The link, when you go to that page, you can download every one of the tutorials, so you can have access to the actual file. And so you can use it and make it anything that you know, however you want to use it. Some I've seen places where they've just linked one of the tutorials to their web page to give information to students. And I thought that was useful. You know, the student logs in and they see that introduction to online learning, right? So when I talk about how do you, using it in online orientation and things like that, those are more along the ideas that I'm thinking about, right? Where the student has access to this information right off the bat, as opposed to necessarily having to go into a Canvas course or something like that. Maybe, again, even for potential students, you can make it an open public Canvas course. So students who are thinking about, I want to take classes, I want to do it online, but I don't know what that means, before they even sign up with a college, that can be available on your website as something that potential students can kind of look and get into. So, okay, so any questions, any other questions about Quests? And I think we've been doing Quests for a while, so most of you may have already had it or know it, but any questions? Okay, So I think I will wrap it up, and thank you guys again. If you have any questions, you can send us questions through support@cvc.edu. You can send questions to me. I will put my email in the chat link. So you can send me questions if you have any questions about what I'm talking about right now. And I will make this recording. We will make this recording available. We have to get it closed captioned. And so when it's available, we will make sure that anyone who's interested in having it have access to it. And we will see you soon and work with you soon. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Okay. Bye. I'm stopping recording.